All right.
Hey, I wanted to just thank everybody for joining. This is the first Homes and Money Realtor Mastermind. This was just something that I came up with that I thought you guys could help each other. I really just want to facilitate conversation and ask our featured guest each week a question and let them kind of explain their story and how that they've developed over their career into today, and then open it up at the end for some questions from anybody that's in attendance. And we have this recorded, so we'll post it and you can reference it later. But I wanted to welcome Scott Oyler. He is of the Oyler-Hines Team. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know Scott all that well. We've met a couple of times. We were at an event together about a month ago that Patrick put on, and got to know him a little bit. I know he's a UC alum and a huge UC fan. And I'm just privileged to have him this morning. When I reached out, he was more than willing to jump on and help out. So I'm going to kind of fire off some questions to him. And then at the end, if you guys have questions of Scott or a topic that you would like to ask his opinion on, I think that would be fair. And we would go from there. So Scott, where are you from? And I assume Cincinnati, but where specifically? And did you grow up here?
Yeah. So first off, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it, Robert. And I think more than ever in this market, we're getting ready to, as things are shifting, it's great for all of us to share ideas and really work together, because we all got to help each other out as we're getting into this, as things are shifting a hair. So, but no, first off, I'm actually a West Sider. Grew up on the West Side. I married an East Sider, so she just wasn't letting me get back to the West Side. So most people, grew up on the West Side, go back to the West Side, but married an East Sider, and so we are in Madeira currently, but graduated from Oak Hills High School. And so we were a little bit of East meets West. He was from Anderson, and so we settled in Madeira. Cool.
And just out of curiosity, how did you get started in real estate? Was it something that you'd always wanted to do, or did you stumble into it? What got you started?
Yeah, so my background's a little unique. I'm a third generation realtor. My grandfather had a real estate company, Parchment and Oyler, that was purchased by Coldwell Banker in the early 80s. And then my dad had been in residential real estate, managing the West Side office for most of the time of the Coldwell Banker brand. But when I started out, I didn't want to do what my grandfather did, what my dad did, because I felt like it was more of an ego thing. I want to do this. I want to do my own thing. But I really liked real estate. I was in the real estate program at UC. So I went into commercial real estate. So I sold multifamily apartment communities. A guy by the name of Dave Lockard hired me over there to work with him. I was a junior broker on the team and was kind of growing my business. And then the good old second half of 2008 hit. And very humbling experience in straight commission sales of going 13 months with a goose egg. So we did really, really well. And then we just couldn't get anything financed. So 6 weeks before my twins were born, got into residential real estate. Okay. And, originally my plan was to do small multifamily, 4 unit, 10 unit, 20 unit, because at CBRE, it was all larger. And then, got into residential and loved it, and actually suited my personality way better. And haven't looked back, it was a great decision. At the time, it was a little tough, but it was a great decision.
So I assume that since you're a third generation, you really didn't have a lot of choice in terms of what brokerage or brand you went with.
It was kind of interesting. My dad really didn't want me to get into real estate. Well, I shouldn't say that. He was really nervous about it. I brought it up to him about switching over to residential. The residential market wasn't great at that time. So it was 2010 was when that transition happened. And so, but he connected me with Joe King, who was our local president at the time. And I talked to a number of agents, 3/4 of which said now is probably not a good time to get into the business. And about another fourth said, hey, you know what? Now is a good time to get into the business. Yeah, it's a little tougher, but if you can learn during these years, when things turn around, you'll be in good, in a good position. So Joe King convinced me. I was between doing that and taking a salary job to just kind of get my feet back on the ground, and liquidated basically all my investments, 401k, everything, to say, okay, I'm going to give this a shot, because we all know it's tough to get started right away. But so when it came down to talking to different brokerages and things like that, Coldwell Banker definitely had the edge up with my dad. He was managing the West Side office at the time. And then I went over to the Hyde Park office. I was living in Oakley when I got into it.
Now, one of the things that's interesting to me, and all of the people that are on here right now are in the top 150, so they're all major producers. But would you say that when you were getting into the industry, that the people that were discouraging you from it, were they big producers, or were they people that may be struggling a little bit? Because I'm curious what you would be telling somebody today.
Yeah, so it was a combination. There were some folks that were pretty big producers that were saying, "Hey, it's tough," and knowing that I was just getting ready to have twins and things like that. They were just kind of going, "Man, this may not be the best time," just because it takes time to get started and get going. But what I tell people, is I feel like I learned so much from, it being a tougher market, than when things have been like what they've been for the last, few years. It's been a little easier, but every market presents its challenge. I think when I look at, some of our agents, at the beginning of this year, it from the outside public view, it seemed really easy, but it was tough to get buyers into contracts in the spring because there was no inventory, and you were trying to advise your clients the best you could to help them win, but you also don't want to put them in a bad position either, as well. With what are you going to do? What's your comfort level with inspections? What's your comfort level with appraisal waivers? Things like that. So it was a very tricky market. So every market presents, I think, some challenges, and it's adapting to what that market presents, because like I said, people on the outside say, hey, this market looked pretty easy, but if you were working with buyers, especially first time home buyers in particular, who didn't have cash, or maybe that FHA buyer or something like that, it was a challenge to try to put them in a contract. So
Absolutely. So how long after you had joined Coldwell Banker did you decide to build a team, and what were the signs that kind of made you decide to do that, and who did you seek counsel from? I'm assuming your dad, but who else did you seek counsel from, and how to go about that?
Yeah, so I didn't just set out to have a team. It kind of came as I was doing business and doing more, handling more clients and buyers, and realizing that the best source of business and the easiest is happy clients, who got great service, who would refer you to your next folks. And I didn't want that service level to slip. I was very fortunate that my dad, he helped. Rick Finn started out over on the West Side office. He worked with him and coaching him, and he's coached several agents, and he just pushed me right away. He just said, hey, look, once you kind of hit that 30 units or so, you want to get an assistant. Like, that was the first step in order to grow. And it was kind of like, gosh, I'm just finally putting money back, in the bank. I'm a little nervous about, hiring someone, but it's probably it's the best thing. And I would tell you the biggest reason the business has grown was that first hire. Heather Stallmeyer, she's been with me. I was a year into the business when I hired her. And sometimes you want to hire people like yourself, but really that's not the best. Like I'm ADD, I'm all over the place. I can only sit in my chair for so long before, I go crazy. I was great on the business development side. I wasn't great on the details. And that's where Heather is just like just such a, she loves to just check things off the list, and so really, that was like a big piece to the growth, and why I was able to grow so quick was just, I got lucky on that first hire. A lot of people don't, it may take 1 or 2 or 3, hires to find that right person that, you can really trust. And, we built that relatively quick. And so that was the first, critical piece. And then, from there, once I started getting, closer to 60 plus units, it was okay. Let's hire a buyer's agent to work with buyers, and hired my first buyer's agent. And once again, it was because of that service level that you wanted to provide and give people. We basically had more buyers, that needed help, and you can only be so many places at a time. And so that was really that next step. And that was, and then after that was the next, buyer's agent. And I think the biggest hurdle a lot of agents have when hiring folks or bringing is like, well, everyone wants to work with me, right? Everyone thinks like everyone wants to work with me. Yeah. But at the end of the day, what the biggest thing I've learned is people just want really, really good service. So if you hire the wrong person and they're not doing a great job, yeah, they're going to want you. But if you hire someone who's really, really good, they're happy to work with those folks. And don't get me wrong, there's still people that, want to say, I want to work with Scott, but for the most part, if you deliver really, really good service, they're happy to work with those folks. And I can tell people, like, even today, like our agents, if someone's looking to buy, I know that Laura is a much better buyer's agent than I am. I know Bryce is a much better buyer's agent than I am, because that's all they're focused on. They're working on trying to aggressively find homes for people. And if you truly believe it in your heart, then people understand and they know and they like it, and they like the service that they're going to get.
So when you brought the team members on, so just to kind of summarize, it seems like your first hire was more of an administrative, like almost a transaction coordinator type hire. Yep. Is that correct? Okay. And then you went into buyer's agents, and you wanted to provide that same level of service and satisfaction, client satisfaction to the clients. Did you spend much time training them? Did you kind of say, hey, this is the way I do things, or did you let people kind of do things on their own?
Yeah, so spend a little bit of time training with those agents, because they're a reflection of your brand. So I wanted to make sure they knew and fit the values of, the company and everything like that. Don't get me wrong, we're not all exactly the same. And once again, we still today, we match up people. We don't do like when leads come in, we don't do like a round robin. We place people on, okay, this person knows this market the best, that's who they should go with, or this personality type looks like a good match. But certainly train them. But what I found was that this business there's a lot of really good real estate agents out there who are really good folks, but the biggest challenge sometimes is business development. And so what I found was folks who worked out really well, or people who were out on their own doing it for a few years. Really good agents that you could trust and do a great job, but maybe needed a little bit help on the business development side of things. And those were the folks that that really have worked out the best on our team. And, and then obviously as they're on your team, you're helping them and coaching them how to develop more business, on their own as well. We like to do kind of like a 50-50. Hey, we bring in about, the team brings in about 50% of your leads. You bring in about 50%, is really kind of the goal of what we try to do, for folks. And everyone wants an opportunity to grow too. I'm probably getting off on a tangent, but
No,
that's the other philosophy, I think, on our team. Like, I look at like Heather's development from where she started to where she is now. It's like everyone needs to have a path to growth or they're going to leave. Right. So,
sure.
You've got to work. How do you grow, folks? Like, we've kind of taken the buyer's agent labels off, on our team. It used to be, hey, all the listings came back to me. I did all the listings. We've kind of evolved and changed. Whether that's right or wrong, it may not work for other teams, but for us, as we've evolved and working on, okay, how does each person grow? And we meet with them. Hey, what's your 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan? How do we kind of grow you to where you want to go? That's the other thing. Like, what's awesome with Laura, who's on our team, has been here for a long time. She'll do 60 plus units, so, probably 26 million or so. And, where she started out, like, a big thing, she likes to ride horses. And so kind of talking about, okay, what's important to you? Well, she wanted to get a horse. Okay. How do we go, help her financially be able to get a horse? Well, then it's like, okay, now it's okay, I got a horse, but I don't have any time to ride the horse, right? And I've got 2 young kids at home. Well, how do we get you some more time so you can do those things that you enjoy while also still making great money, right? And growing your business. And so we worked with her. We have a showing partner for her that she was hired, that she's kind of mentoring him, but he's also helping her out with showings on times when her boys have soccer games and things like that. Right. So she has, been able to grow her business while also make sure that she has time to ride the horse, be a great mom to her kids. Because this business is tough. You feel like you got to just pick up and go. And so those are things that we try to communicate with our team members on what's important financially, but what does success also look like outside of just work as well.
Sure. So I do want to kind of break this down just a second. And I know that within each brokerage, this could be a challenge, but I think one of the things that people often think about is, how am I going to pay these team members? So are there splits involved, and how do you get creative with that? And then the second thing is, how do you divvy up responsibilities? So could you touch on that for a second?
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about comp. Obviously, I'm not going to share split numbers and everything, but how we look at it and how we structure it is, if someone's going to come on your team, right, what is the value that you're providing them, right? It has to be a win-win. I've had people that have come up to me, they'll lie, and have said, Scott, I want to meet with you because I want to learn how to make money off of other people. And I've looked at them and said, well, then it will never work for you, because if that's your sole intention, then it will never work for you, right? It has to be a win for the agents on your team and a win for the team leader, right? And so you have to make sure you're providing that value for your team members. And I think that's why we've had a lot of success with folks who've been, on their own for a few years, knowing that it's challenging to develop business. So being able to provide leads, being able to provide transaction coordination, being able to provide the marketing, all the different things that they don't have a lot of the expenses, they're going to come out, and then that growth, how are they going to grow? How are we going to work with you to grow your business? And that's a key piece. So you have to provide that value, because any member of our team could go out to any brokerage and get a much better split. But at the end of the day, are they going to net more being on our team? I would say yes, right? And then there's folks that just like that team environment, like to bounce things off each other and everything like that. But I feel like the team structures, I think the challenge sometimes are just like what you said at the beginning, like the admin being the first hire, like that's the most important thing. I think sometimes you have people like, hey, I'm an agent, you're an agent, let's form a team, but really you're still just two individuals doing your business, but you're just saying you're a team, right?
Sure.
So having that back office support for all of our folks. So, how we have it right now, we have two marketing folks, one that does more brand marketing, one does more property marketing. We have two transaction coordinators. So each member has a dedicated transaction coordinator that's assigned to them and giving the support, there. We have an operations manager who just takes care of everything's related to operations. We have our chief of happiness, Lauren, who's a runner doing lock boxes, sign writers. If you have, if you've ever had to wait for your client for, the contractor to come over or, the cable person, she's over there making sure that gets done. Because we want our agents out, showing homes, writing contracts, meeting with people and developing business. So the comp piece, once again, is, any one of our team members can go to another brokerage and get a better split, but it's that value that you have to provide folks.
Do you recommend that everybody on the team be tied to performance in some shape or form? Or are there some people that are just naturally going to be straight, salary type positions?
Yeah. So our agents are all commission based. Our transaction coordinators get paid per transaction. But then we have, our salary folks on the team that, our marketing people are on salary. Our operations person, Heather, who's our sales manager, are all on salaries. But a lot of their salaries and bonuses and things like that are tied to team production, performance, things like that. And then with each of our agents, we also have kind of a minimum standard. Hey, here's what, our deal is, 12 deals. We got to do it because sometimes if you have someone brand new, so I got to have a minimum of 12 deals per year. Because we want to have that high standard, but we sit down with them beginning of the year. Okay, how much money do you want to make? All right, what's the average sale price? How many units we need to do to get there? And then we develop a plan, how we're going to get there. And then they've got some coaching that goes along with trying to hold them accountable, to those goals, and working together to achieve, what they're trying to do for the year. And once again, that's where that win-win. If they win, we win. We're both incentivized to do well together.
Sure.
Then you had one other question in there, and I think you had that two-parter. I talked about
you kind of answered it in terms of how do you divvy up responsibilities, in terms of who does what, and you've kind of touched on that. So what made you decide then? I mean, you're at Coldwell Banker, you've built this team, et cetera. What made you decide to then branch off into your own brand, and then ultimately kind of develop the Remington room and have your offices there, et cetera? What kind of led you through that?
Yeah. So a couple of things happened. So one, it was just I had a team, Oyler Group. Mike Hines had a team, Build Collective. Mike's team focused primarily on new construction. Most of my business, it was primarily of our team was resale business. And so Mike and I, we just always shared ideas, right? And this is what's great with agents, right? Just being able to share ideas. We didn't compete a whole lot. We were both with Coldwell Banker, so we shared ideas. And he loved new construction, but he didn't love doing resale business. And I'd talk to him and I'd say, like, someone would call on a new build that he had, and he would ask them, what are you doing with your current house? But he wouldn't like really go after it. And I'm like, man, those are like leads that you can capitalize on. So originally we were talking about maybe sharing some back office support, things like that, as our teams were growing. And then he said, I said, well, maybe you could make an introduction to any of the folks that, are calling you on your new construction stuff, and introduce, our team is kind of like the resale side of things. Let's just test it out and see how it goes. Well, the businesses complement each other very, very well. So Mike and I kind of dated, for lack of a better term, for about a year, trying to figure out, what we were going to do here. And then we just said, hey, look, we're better together, and if we work together, and Mike and I complement each other in a lot of ways. Like, Mike is a great operator. He can dive into the details. He can, he's super, super, super smart. He's more of like an extroverted introvert, if that makes sense. Like, he can talk to a bunch of people, but but it's not like his favorite thing. Whereas I'm like, oh, cool, there's this event going on, I'll be there. I love to be, so we complement each other in a lot of ways. So I'm probably more on the sales side. He's more on operations, the way his brain thinks and my brain works. And where he is so strong is where I'm weak. And so we thought, hey, we're better together. Let's do this. And we explored, do we do our own brokerage, our own independent brand? We had some folks that were trying to get a new brand to Cincinnati that were, one was talking to him, one was talking to me. We explored all that. And at the end of the day, we decided, what, we feel like, the team and the brokerage and the support we have is Coldwell Banker is the right place for us to be. So we explored some things. So we decided to merge together. And probably one of the things that helped my business and his business is we both wanted to make sure we were very branded, right? Mm-hmm. So I had my brand, he had his brand. And then we went through this rebrand together, Oyler-Hines, and we spent a fair amount of money on our rebrand. But we wanted to make sure when we rolled this thing out that it was a recognizable brand. There's a lot of great agents out there who do a good job at building their brand, and so it's recognizable. I see a lot of times agents will have, multiple different colors, multiple different fonts. You don't know, like, I know when I see, I'll call out some other great agents. Like, I know when a listing comes out, I'm like, I can just tell, like, that's a Finn team listing or Heather Herr's team. Like, there's the folks that have great, branding. So we want to make sure that we had a strong, make sure we were branded really, really strong. So we worked with this company, 1000 Watt, and it was great. It was way more expensive than what we wanted to pay, but it was well worth it. So I think that those that are on the call that haven't looked into, like, really going heavy into the branding side of things and getting, it was money well worth it. So fast forward, we went into, tell me if I'm talking too much here, but
no, you're good. When you have a second, it seems like Heather does have a question about the branding piece.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I can answer that.
Heather, I just sent you a request to unmute if you'd like to ask it.
I apologize. I did not mean to do that. So.
Hi, Heather. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Scott.
She's unmuted. So then we were looking for space because we kind of outgrew with our teams coming together, we kind of outgrew the Coldwell Banker space. And we really wanted a fun space. I really built my business primarily on, relationships and being with people. And we loved the idea of having a space where we could have clients and events and things like that. We were having a hard time finding that. And then sure enough, this building came for sale in Montgomery, and it was perfect. We ended up buying it, and that, we've got a tenant here that's an architect, and then there is a event space component to it. And then we have our offices. And what's great is our office in the back, we can shut it off, or we can open it up to the space. And, it's kind of like a cafe feel. Our agents like working out there, but we can rent it out, and we rent it out, and it offsets a large chunk of our, of our spend for our space. And then what we love most about it is just hosting events and different things that, the communities that we're involved in, and having our agents use it for things they're involved in. So, just as an example, we did a fundraiser here for Madeira schools. We did a bourbon tasting here. We raised a lot of money for the schools. We've had the Madeira football team on Monday nights. The coach will do breakdown film with some of the dads. So they're all in our space, seeing everything and our brand and all that stuff. And then we, like I said, rent it out for regular parties as well. Laura's having a fundraiser for one of the equestrian groups she's a part of. So it's worked out really, really well. But it also has its challenges in running an event space too. It's not our primary business, but
Sure.
it's working out pretty well.
And then I could be totally wrong, but I think when I was there, do you sometimes just open up for Bengals games, or like don't you just kind of sometimes host like?
Oh
as
yeah,
a-
I host party. Yeah, during the Bengals playoff run. I mean, I had a party here every game. So yeah, we've had a number of those. We're just having friends. I'm having a big, Halloween party here.
Nice.
With two other couples that are hosting it with us. And but yeah, it's a lot of fun. So it's pretty cool because people are asking you a lot of questions. So what's this? Your offices are here? We've got like all the glasses and mugs are kind of subtly brand, we got the OH brands on them and stuff like that. So even because we have P&G, we've had, we're talking P&G, but like some financial services firms, some other places they'll do like retreats during the day, where they'll be in our space. So it's kind of nice. And then there's like an entrepreneur men's group that I'm part of. I hosted, we meet quarterly. We had the big meeting here. So just another way to kind of showcase a little bit about what you do without being in their face about, what you do, right? It's just kind of, people will say, oh my gosh, this is your office, and okay. And then they kind of start to understand a little bit about what you do.
Sure. All right. Last question, then I kind of want to open it up. But again, the people that are in here as an audience today are all top producers. But what would you say is the biggest piece of advice in this market? So, we came through a crazy 2020 and 2021, and now here we are in 2022. What would you say your biggest piece of advice is for this particular market?
Yeah, I think with this particular market, it's a really good question. And I think we could all share probably what the best advice might be. But really for me, it is, I think both buyers and listings are going to be much more difficult to come by next year. Inventory hasn't risen like people thought it would. People aren't listing their houses as much as we thought they would. And going into next year, I just think really leaning into past clients. I mean, if you think about it here, a lot of the folks that you said are top 150 have done a lot of deals, right? And so leaning into your past clients as much as you can in your database, that's what's so great, right? Is like a lot of the projections are that your ROI on online leads and things like that are probably going to be down. I know just alone, our online leads are down about 29%. Because we have a little dashboard that we follow. And so the ROI on online, it could be a little tricky, but we have, free leads you don't have to pay for or do anything for, just in our database, and really working on those. And I think we've all been so busy running, trying to get clients into homes And we've probably not done a great job working that database because we had a lot of business, a lot of people were buying, selling. And so really working that database is what we're focusing on. We just had our annual pumpkin patch. This week was a client event. We're so we're kind of doubling down a little bit on client events. We're having a bourbon tasting here in November. That's going to be kind of like a smaller, more intimate group. We've got our Santa event in December, and really, it's a lot of times we've kind of relied a little bit more on like email invites and all that stuff. And I'm just trying to tell our folks, like, we need to be calling these folks and reaching out to them and just planting seeds. And I think the hardest part right now is we're in such a instant instant gratification, right? Like if I want something on Amazon, it's here tomorrow. But to me, the fourth quarter right now is watering your seeds. You're planting seeds and you're watering those seeds for next year, because the projections are, Fannie Mae's projections I saw were their transactions are going to be down about 20% or so, right? So if that's down 20%, what lead volume is likely going to be down as well, right? Sure. So really just watering those seeds, and we've got a great database, and how do you connect with that database in a meaningful way is going to be your best ROI, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's crazy to me, and regardless of the industry that you're in, just the simple rules of database marketing are that 10% of your database is going to do a transaction every single year. And it's like they're going to do it with or without you. So if you're not staying in contact with them, somebody else is going to grab that transaction.
Absolutely. There's nothing worse. And it happened, it happens to us, happens to everybody. When all of a sudden you see a house go on the market and you're like, I remember that house. Didn't we sell them that house? What the hell happened here? Yeah. I go back to those. They're like, in our database, our CRM, it logs, you see all the communication, and it's like, oh shit, they didn't get anything for the last, year and a half, or all they got was just the canned email. There wasn't a phone call log, wasn't a text log, there wasn't, and there's nothing worse than that, than that feeling.
Yep. All right. We've got some time for some questions. Anybody have questions for Scott?
Quiet crowd.
Well,
hey, it's Luke. I got a question for you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Scott, I probably should have asked you this a long time ago, but my transactions have steadily grown the last few years. I've got a good business right now. Time's an issue for me, like you mentioned as well. I got 4 kids and like to coach sports and that kind of thing. So how do you, when starting a team, you kind of touched on this, but if you expand more, how do you keep that personal attention to your clients? Now you're probably going to have VIP A clients you're just going to handle, like you said. But even when your team grows, my biggest concern is that, like you kind of said, they want to hire me. Maybe they don't. Maybe there's someone better than me that's I need to hire myself. But how do you keep that kind of personal attention on, especially if your business is a lot of repeat referral?
Yeah, I think when I hired my first buyer's agent, because you got a transaction coordinator and admin and all that, right?
It's one person. She's part-time.
One person.
Yeah.
So you're talking more of like buyer's agent? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Or like another agent?
Like my weekends are valuable, like everyone's right now with the kids and that kind of thing. And, that's when a lot of our business happens. So it's, whether it's a showing agent or listing support, that kind of thing. But really it would be, I can't be everywhere every time. And I've probably passed on a little business. In a good market, I probably should have taken
that. But that's the thing. If you present yourself as a team and saying, hey, this is Sally. Sally is my business partner. We want to make sure that you have the best service possible. I'd love to be at every single thing, but the reality is that's not giving you the best service. And so I think it's just all in how you frame it. And if you get that right person to work with you, as long as they once again have that right the best service. Because Luke, you being at your kids' games, and those are all important things. A, to be there to watch your kids play, right?
Yeah.
And coach and all that stuff. But how many referrals and
No, I mean,
relationships
yeah,
are you
I'm aware of that
building
too.
there, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so that's the whole thing, is like, you have to do that, you know, A, because you want to, but B, to build those relationships. And then, you know, but if you have the right person and you present it in the right way, you know, knowing that, hey, look, I'm doing this so that we can provide you the best service. You know, that is where it works. I think a lot of times that's the biggest hesitation for people, is like, people want me, they want me. And
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing I was worried about. And, you know, what I found is, as long as you're kind of checking in on the process and things like that, you know, and saying, hey, I just want to check in, you know, is experience everything you're hoping it is? Is there anything we can improve on? You know, they still feel like, you know, that, you know, they're getting the service that they need. You know, and maybe you start out, like when I hired my first buyer's agent, it was like, okay, I took half the buyers, she took half the buyers, and there were certain people I knew I probably needed to work with. But then as I got more and more comfortable with it, you know, and then, I mean, I probably have maybe one, maybe two buyers a year. That's about it right now. It's not, and I actually love the buyer side of the business. That's when you build some of the best relationships. But the challenge is it's time. You know, that's what takes up the most time in order to grow, you know, the business, right? Listings are what kind of really drive things. So I still think you can do that and give that person touch, as long as you just have a plan. And most of the time I'm involved in all the buyer consult.
That's what I was going to ask. Is it like, do you go with, so you'll go with the team as well? It's kind of like a team buyer consult or team listing appointment, or?
Yeah, I haven't as much. There's certain people that I know, like,
Sure.
So if it's a lead, someone calls in and I've never met them before, one of our agents going, if, you know, I had a close friend of mine buy $1 million house, you know, and I sat down with him and Laura and just, you know, said, hey, you know, Laura's on the team. She works with a lot of our high-end buyers. She's going to take great care of you. You know, she knows the areas that you're interested in the back of her hand, you know, like the back of her hand. You know, I'm here for you. I'm your guy. But, you know, what you need right now is someone who's aggressively focused on this for you. And that's all she's doing every day. And so, you know, and then I just check in. Hey, how's it going? Is there anything, you know, is everything going well? Yeah, it's great. Laura's great. She's awesome, you know? So every once in a while, there's gonna be hiccups with it. You know, I'm not gonna tell you it's perfect. I'd be lying to you. And there's sometimes, you know, I've taken some folks back that just for whatever reason, a personality doesn't mesh, or, you know, something happens. But for the most part, I've like I said, I've gone now probably 3 years of doing 5 or less buyers. You just got to trust your team member. I think that's the hardest part, is knowing that, you know, they're going to make some mistakes, but you've got to trust that they're going to grow them, and you know, that that's how they're going to learn and be better agents. But you know, I think that the presenting like, hey, we're a team working on your behalf versus just an individual. You know, it's hard if you're you know, what if you got a reload person coming in town that's here all week, right? I'm not going to be able to show you this house. And I think those are the things you present, you know, to them. Or maybe you go, you know, on a couple of the showings, but you're not at all of them. You know, you just kind of ease your way into it. And then once you start feeling a little more comfortable and confident, you'll see.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Anyone else have any questions?
This is Heather. Can you hear me
Hey,
okay?
Heather. We got you.
Hi.
How are you, Heather?
Good. Sorry about that earlier. I was actually driving from one side of town to the other, but I wanted to be on here. And thank you so much. Information's amazing. I do have one question. My team, you know, similar, I have just a small group of buyers agents, and they're all working every weekend, obviously, all the time. Whenever clients come in or new things come up. But our biggest struggle right now is our administrative group is very great. I mean, they all have very defined roles, which I think is very helpful. But a lot of times we do a lot of business on the weekend. So our biggest thing right now is we all work all the time and trying to define those work hours. So as you said, like, for example, you want to be at your kids' sporting events, and I'm the same way. My daughter goes to college out of town. I try to go visit her, but I think it's often a challenge to try to keep people on track, especially over the weekends. So does your admin group that helps you, do they ever work on the weekends? Like, I mean, either at home or in the office, question mark,
Yeah.
or is it mostly
So
just weekday?
it's mostly weekday, but there is definitely support on the weekends. Agents know, like, hey, if I'm like in the spring, if I'm running and I need help to write a contract because I've got to go to another showing, they have that resource and support, that's there for them. I think it's one of those things you just don't want to like totally take an advantage of, right? Where some of these folks, so there's kind of a delicate balance, but that support is definitely there for them, to utilize. So our transaction coordinators are probably a little more hands-on than most. I mean, I like Tina is very protective of my inbox. I mean, it was hilarious. I met a lender the other day that, I said, oh, hey, how are you doing? And she was like, oh, we just closed the deal like 3 weeks ago. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, and she was like, well, I tried emailing you, and your transaction coordinator kept saying, don't email Scott. If you have any updates, email me. Because like Tina's super protective of our agents' inboxes. Like, I'll take care of it. I'll handle it. If there's anything you need, if I need to get them involved, I'll get them involved. Right. And trying to, and that's where I'm also like Heather, who I talked about, like she's on there as a co-lister on all my listings as well. So if people can't reach me, they'll reach her on the weekends. She's, she's willing to help out on the weekends, and also is our sales manager. So if our agents have some questions or need some coverage, she kind of helps out there as well. Once again, if it's the same thing over and over again, if someone's totally taking advantage of it, then we would probably have a conversation, but we do have a lot of that support in place, because we have some folks that like Heather's a great example of someone who I've talked to her many times. Like, do you want to, and she'll do a handful of deals, but like, she doesn't want to be an agent. She likes supporting the agents in their business. And so we've kind of promoted her to this like sales manager role, where that's her job, is kind of manage and help and train, our agents and help them grow.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I had a quick question. This is Miranda.
Hey, Miranda.
Hey there. What do you do to incentivize your producers, or really anyone, I guess, on your team to reach their goals and keep going when it's maybe tough time for them?
Yeah. So we do like sit with them monthly, go through there. We've had different incentives from like, hey, if the team hits a certain thing, there's an extra bonus. Individually, there's a bonus. We try to have a lot of fun events and things like that together. We've got kind of a competitive group. I'm pretty lucky. A lot of the folks on our team, I don't have to, super motivate. Sometimes they'll tell me I give too many rah-rah speeches, like you don't need to, like, because they're hungry. But don't get me wrong, there's a lot of those conversations. Like, I think we've all seen it, like buyer leads have kind of dropped off quite a bit, right? So buyer demand is down, and you just gotta be able to talk to them and support them on, okay, what do you need to, what do you need? What kind of support do you need? What kind of help do you need? And just having those conversations, because we do that every month, go through, okay, here's where you're at, here's the goal. And also keep them involved in our team. Like, where's our team at? So every team meeting, we have our numbers. We use a program called CSU, tracks all of our numbers. I can lay them month over month for the last few years. to know how it compares the month before. I can also do the same with the agents when I meet with them. So sometimes they're like, man, I'm in a big slump, and and I can go and I can lay over their numbers from the last 2 years and say, look, this is seasonal. You had the same thing during the same time, last year, and kind of work through that. But we do some incentives, for our folks, and really just try to make sure they're being supported. And we do a lot of team outings, team events, things like that, to make sure we don't take ourselves, too serious. But a lot of our agents, they have these hefty goals they want to hit, and they like the coaching, the accountability, in some ways. But to be honest with you, we're pretty lucky. A lot of our folks, they're almost harder on themselves, than we are on them. But we're constantly trying to provide, what can we do to help you reach your goal? And sometimes it's, hey, you know what, you need to take some time off. You're fried. It's easy to get burnt out. Take a weekend off. We got your business covered. Like, you need to take some time. And that kind of stuff is important as well. I don't know. Did that answer your question?
Yep. Thank you.
Right.
Anyone else? All right. Well, Scott, I really, really, really appreciate it. I think this has been great. We've had some good questions. My plan is to do this weekly, and I'll tell you that next week's guest is Julia Packer Wesselkamper, and then Heather is going to be my guest in 2 weeks. So I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to grow and evolve. I'd love some feedback from all of you if you have some questions that you'd like to have answered. And Scott, I'm just really gracious that you were the inaugural guest on this. And so I appreciate all of you, and I look forward to where this goes.
All right. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
See
Thanks,
you.
everyone.